Hi, this is Jim,
And Ralph.
and today we're going to resume our series on what makes good mental health. Remember that, Ralph?
Yeah, and we talked about the first 10 things that we see in people who are exhibiting good mental health in their day to day lives.
Yeah, like they can laugh at themselves or they're not bowled over. Is that the word?
Bowled over
By their
by
emotions.
experiences.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about this today. Um, Jimmy Buffett manifests a lot of these characteristics that we've been looking at.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if he would be the poster child for good mental health. Certainly, as a what rock and roll drunk tequila drinker in Margaritaville, he might not be the
on the other hand,
okay.
he was, he one of his songs is making music for money.
Yeah,
And he certainly did that, along with the band, who he shared they had
the
a financial
the
arrangement.
coral reefers.
Yeah, and it was generous for the coral reefers. But Jimmy Buffett ended up a billionaire
Yeah,
because not only did he make money with music, but he also invested wisely. He also, in spite of the fact that his songs were all about uh, relaxing and sort of indolence, he was a very busy singer on the road a lot.
yeah, right.
And he
Yeah,
didn't spend a lot of money on frivolity or tearing up hotel rooms.
no, he did buy a few boats and airplanes, however. Yeah, yeah. I think Jimmy would be a good example of someone with good mental health. I particularly like, I think it's the last song that came out called Bubbles Up.
Yeah,
It says, wherever you are, however deep you are, however far away you are from the surface, if you follow the bubbles, you'll get, up to the
yeah.
top. Well, he sort of followed some bubbles, I guess, in his life. Well,
Well, that's certainly a dive mantra. If you get disoriented when you're diving, how do you know which way is up?
follow the bubbles.
Follow the bubbles.
Okay, yeah, he had it. In that song, there was another uh, allusion to diving. He said, life is hard, but it's not half as hard as the bends. You know, we've talked about how we interact with people, and one of the things that I think with people who are mentally healthy is that they can accept differences in other people. You know, the people that I interact with don't have to be carbon copies of Jim Carroll.
No. In fact, if the people that you interacted with were carbon copies of you and the people I interacted with were carbon copies of me, it would be a pretty boring world.
Yeah, I think that's so. Viva la différence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And, sometimes when you're having a disagreement with a significant other, and that's a natural thing to have, always remember that you love them. And one of the things that you're disagreeing about is they are not exactly like you.
right. A good point. Another thing that I think that is going along with being emotionally healthy is that you mentioned getting along or having a discussion with your significant other, but that you can function within a group, also.
Yeah. And, one of the things that we have talked about in the past here on the podcast is kind of the epidemic of loneliness. And if you can feel part of a group, if you have a group, that really exhibits good mental health. And if you don't have a group, one of the things I would suggest is that maybe you find one.
Yeah, I think that's a good,
And
point.
it could be as simple as if you happen to live in the town you grew up, it could be five guys you went to high school with who get together at a restaurant in the morning and drink coffee.
Okay, yeah. Or it could be your church.
your church.
Um, you know, some people go there on Sunday and leave an hour or two later, but there's lots of opportunities in lots of churches for kind of group activities. But like you one of the things you like to do is shoot.
Yeah,
So you join a group over near Midland, right? Or so you can go out to
out
the shooting
out on
range.
the east end of Mount Pleasant, and
Hmm.
we get together on Sunday afternoon. Um, we shoot targets. We shoot the breeze.
Hmm.
It it's a good group of guys. Usually there is the daughter of one of the guys who also likes to shoot. She comes along, and we just it's good camaraderie.
Okay. You mentioned the daughter of one of the other shooters. One of the things I think you kind of mentioned it with Jimmy Buffett and the Coral Reefer Band, that people who have good mental health actually foster and take care of other people.
Yeah,
We're not talking about a dependency kind of relationship, but they keep their eye open, kind of like in your neighborhood. You and your
yeah,
wife keep your eye open for the neighbor across the street or your neighbor, beside you, and you're ready to intervene if there's any kind of necessity, right?
yeah, and it's interesting, Jim, because we have been reaching out to our neighbors recently. Excuse me, recently, and there's a group of 7 neighbors,
Okay.
and they have all responded back when Karen sent them a message, and it feels good to have people who are concerned about you,
Okay. Good point.
and you are concerned about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that you know, Vance Packard said that we are, a nation of strangers. But in your case, knowing the 7 people around you, that probably is higher than the average.
Perhaps, yeah,
In a podcast a while ago, you talked about how many good friends and acquaintances most people have now, as opposed to say 1950. Remember that?
right.
It was a lot fewer now.
It's a lot fewer now. Yeah.
Although I go on Facebook and I see that some people have 2,500 friends.
Well,
I
and
have one.
that's a severe corruption of the word friends.
Good enough. Yeah, we have 27,000 people that follow our nonsense here, Ralph.
Right.
Okay. And hey, we consider you all friends.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. And can I borrow a buck?
One of the things that mentally healthy people do also, Jim, is when they have some sort of problem, they look after it when it
They
arises.
deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to my neighbor this morning, and he had the tree people over at his house yesterday, and they're there again today. And he said, "Well, there's a dead tree that's kind of overhanging the house. We
Okay.
want to make sure that doesn't fall on the house. And there's this tree that's got some problems overhanging your property, Jim. It's right over there. We want to make sure that that doesn't cause a problem for you. So this is going to cost some money for Don, but he's taking care of his world. He's taking care
Yep.
of the
Yeah.
problems before they become problems.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Jim, when you look at things like insurance companies,
Hmm.
because insurance companies will say, "Oh, yeah, we'll insure you so that if a tree falls on your house, we'll pay for the repairs." And you say, "Okay, that's good."
If a tree falls on the house, do you hear it?
No, not
You probably will.
unless you're sleeping.
Okay.
But in the case of the insurance company, you go to them and you say, "I've got a tree that I think is going to fall on my house."
Okay.
And they say, "Oh, too bad. As soon as it falls, we'll pay you $1.5 million." Well, wait a minute. You won't pay me to have somebody take it down so it doesn't fall?
That
And
that's screwy logic, isn't it?
Yeah, and so it's going to cost you arbitrarily $4,000 to take it down, but it saves you $1.5 million. No, we don't do that.
The experience I've had is that after the tree falls down on somebody's house, they say, "Well, it's an act of God," and
Yeah, we're not going to pay you $1.5 million.
yeah,
The
well,
other thing is, and it's a good example of with your neighbor, they accept their responsibilities.
yeah,
So your neighbor could have looked over and said, Jim has a tree here that's not looking very good also. Should I tell him?
yeah.
You
That
know,
would be a good thing to do, right?
yeah, well, you would think so, but a lot of people would say, no, I don't want to get involved,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. So people with good mental health do get involved. They do remind people about uh, things that they're concerned about
Yeah, without being pushy
and
and
saying,
aggressive.
you must do this.
Right. Yeah, because that is going to cause people to push back
Yeah,
very much. And I think people who are mentally healthy don't let themselves be pushed around,
no.
or bullied. Um,
On the other hand, they don't push other people around or bully them.
yeah,
So, there's kind of what should we call it? There's a kind of code or understandable way of being that says I look after myself.
is that kind of live and let live?
Yeah, and um, if my neighbor tells me something that I think is pushy, I'm going to say thanks for your advice. I'll consider it with every item that I think is worthwhile. Um,
Uh
you
huh.
know, um, and and just let it go at that.
Okay, yeah, good point. So letting things go, that's, I think, a mark of somebody with good mental health. They don't keep, what's the word? They don't take tickets and then keep those tickets and use them against other people at some point in time.
Yeah,
You know, I'm going through our discussion here in my mind, Ralph. Um, I wonder if we could apply some of these things to the people who are running for various elected offices.
I think we certainly can, and I think many people who are running for elective office could serve as poster children or bad examples.
As Jimmy Buffett would be a poster child of good mental health, um, some of the other people, not so much.
Not so much.
Okay. Well, this is kind of interesting. I think that one of the things that I think we haven't talked about yet is that people who are mentally healthy are often quite creative. But on the other hand, people who are um, not very mentally healthy can also be quite creative.
Yeah, if you think of some of the famous painters who were alcoholic or self-mutilating or
Vincent van Gogh comes to mind.
yeah, you think of those folks, they were certainly very creative, but
Not happy.
not happy. And yet you can be happy and
Not be creative.
not be creative,
Yeah.
or you can be happy and be creative.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, the connection there is kind of strange.
Yeah.
But as I saw a famous cartoon in a magazine years ago, it was a wife looking at a husband sitting at a desk with a typewriter, and she's saying to a friend of hers, he can drink like Brendan Behan, if only he could write like Brendan Behan.
Or in the words of Hemingway, write drunk, edit sober. I don't know where that one came from, but it's a
The other
sequitur.
thing with mentally healthy people is they put their best efforts into what they do. They get satisfaction out of doing it. They do their best at everything, and they enjoy everything. Now, that doesn't mean they succeed at everything,
Okay.
but, you know, well, let's take the example of somebody start deciding he or she wants a small business.
Okay.
The average person starts 4 small businesses before they succeed.
Okay. So, yeah, we've talked about this one before. You've got to kiss a lot of frogs
Yeah,
before you find the prince or princess. Um, but is the entrepreneur, would-be entrepreneur, bowled over by his or her failures? Well, maybe.
maybe,
Maybe somebody's going to quit after the first one. But the
but
person,
maybe you're going to find somebody who says, at the end of a month walking around saying, I'm devastated, my great idea failed, they're going to say, you know, I just had a better idea.
mm-hmm, good point. Well, I think we've gone through, Ralph, a number of things that are characteristic of mentally healthy people. I hope our listeners have been listening and sort of checking things off. Okay, am I happy?
Yeah,
Do I get along with people? And do I accept differences? We've gone through, I don't know, about 15 or 20 different things. And, just because you might not make it on one of those, generally speaking, as an aggregate, how did you do?
yeah.
I
And
think you and I probably did pretty well here, right?
I think, one of the interesting things to me, Jim, there's a little follow up quiz to this that you and I took, and the average North American scores about 65
Okay.
on that follow up quiz, which means that nobody scores to get
100%.
100.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to be perfect to be mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's something that, I've been looking at in the last couple of weeks more television than I usually do. And one of the things that really strikes me as very different than 5 years ago when I had a period where I watched more television than usual is there are a lot more advertisements for either supplements to make your brain more active, supplements to make you think better, drugs to calm your anxiety, drugs to improve your depression. If you look at what's on television now in terms of advertisements, it would seem that the world is an entirely crazed and awful place.
Well, on a given day, I might actually agree with that.
Well, the thing is that, you know, it's kind of like making a pancake. You put a pancake batter on the frying pan, and what you see is periodically as the pancake cooks, there will be bubbles that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the world. They're everywhere we look.
There
Are
bubbles.
bubbles.
Okay, good point. But the world itself is
But the world itself is
cooking along pretty well,
cooking along pretty well.
even though we're told it's not, right?
It's not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with an election season coming up, we're getting told that a lot. So think about some of the things that you're hearing. Think about the experiences that you are experiencing, the emotions, and ask yourself, what can I do to enhance my own feelings of self-worth and self-understanding? How can I pass it on?
Yeah.
Well, I think, Ralph, until next time, we should say to our listeners,
As usual, keep your stick on the ice
because
because
we're all
we're
in
this
together.
together.
Okay. I'll put that back if you want. Okay. Take the recording sign off. So when do they let people out? In the morning?
Yeah.
This is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to getting out?
I am.
One day is okay. A week is fair. But 2 weeks is boring.